With Counter-Strike 2 being on the edge of being released, today we're breaking down the best mathematical investment for you to make right now. Now the way we're going to determine it is quite simple. We've got three different categories, the first of which is February 18th to April 18th. This is 6 months ago to basically the peak of all of the growth. Then we have April 19th all the way to today, seeing how much most of these items have decreased since their peak. And then we've got the third category, which is the entire amount of data. This is to let us know which things have grown the most, dropped the most, and which are in the current best position. SkinSwap is today's sponsor, and they're also sponsoring you with a free bonus for signing up with the first link in the description. They're the premier place for CSGO and Rust skins with a massive trading site and a top-of-the-line marketplace, offering you the most competitive rates out there and a massive 40% bonus when you're using that link in the description. Combine that with their top-of-the-line selling feature with many payout options and their trading feature legitimately taking you just about a minute, and there's no reason not to sign up with that first link in the description. Starting off for cases, I broke it into four categories, the first of which is the cheaper rare cases. This is going to include your Prisma, your CS20, your Danger Zone, your Prisma 2, your Clutch, and your Horizon. Now for this, when we look at the peak of the growth, we can see that on average we saw about a 300% rise in just 2 months, which is absolutely crazy, with the biggest one coming from the Prisma 2 at 403.42%. Looking at the drop, we can see that we saw a pretty significant drop averaging about 40%, which leaves us with a total average return of about 135%, with the maximum coming from the Prisma 2, which is at 211.43%. Now looking at the active duty cases, unfortunately we had to exclude the Revolution. It was just way too new, and when you see the recoil you'll completely understand. However, that didn't stop the massive growth in this area from an average of 350%. Subsequently, that led to a 60% drop off for an average return of about 80%. Maximum return we saw was 167% with the fracture, but we saw a massive peak of 570% with the snake bite. Now when we go ahead and exclude the recoil as well, our average return goes from 350% to over 400%, which is why I just couldn't include the Revolution in this. After that, I handpicked out 6 of the cases I thought did the best over the past couple months. These are the Spectrum 2, the Revolver, the Gamma 2, the Chroma 3, the Broken Fang, and the Breakout, and we saw an average peak return of 150%. This is only half of what we saw with the cheaper rare cases. Those ones had 300%, here only 150%. However, it really changes up when we get to the decrease, as we saw a very minimal 14.5% decrease for these handpicked cases, leading them to an overall average return of 111.6%, very considerably close to what we saw for those cheaper rare cases. The Chroma 3 actually performed extremely well, being the second best case of the overall bunch here, coming in with 180% average growth, only losing out to the Prisma 2 by a very small smidge. And finally, to wrap up, I grabbed the 4 most expensive cases and threw them in here to see what we get. The peak growth was 75% on average, they only saw a 12.5% decrease, and on average they came out to a 50% return, although this was largely carried by the Hydra case, which came in at 88%. So which cases performed the best? Well, we can obviously see the Prisma 2 and the Chroma 3. They both dominated their respective categories, and their respective categories were the top 2. Otherwise, I did include the Fracture and the Hydra as being the best from their categories, although I don't think they were the particular best. I would say honestly, the cheaper rare cases definitely show they are a very strong powerhouse when it comes to investing, but some of those older hand-picked cases did decently well, and I think they're honestly worth an interest if you want something that's a little bit less volatile. As we saw, they only had a 14% decrease. Now in the past, when I was figuring out the mathematical best Paris investment, we looked at a lot of Antwerp data, and we saw that there was pretty massive returns all across the board, especially in the capsule area. However, that's not the case here. Looking at exclusively the past 6 months, we can see that the Antwerp capsules only returned a very measly 40%, with the majority of this coming from the team logo capsules and the autograph contenders. The autograph legends and the autograph challengers actually went negative, coming back to once again the testament that you need to invest into capsules that actually have long-term demand. However, the Stockholm capsules also provided a very important piece of information. Now looking at the Stockholm capsules, we saw an average return of 61.8%. However, this was not evenly split by any means. The contenders saw 122 and the challengers saw a return of only 14%. Once again, coming back to the testament that even though it may be a good investment, the price point is one of the most important things when it comes to investing, as the challengers was definitely the most hyped up, but also the most expensive. And we can see that here when we look at these legends that has triple and the contenders that has 8 times better better returns in that same period. Now, what does that mean when we're talking about our Paris capsule investment? Well, the first thing is we need to look at those past trends and figure out what carries over. And the first thing is we're looking at those champions capsules. They statistically do the worst. Make sure you keep that into your consideration. The other thing is those autograph capsules are really hit or miss. We can look at Antwerp and see that only one of the autograph capsules did well, and that was the one that had the most demand. Looking at the ones for Paris that have the most demand, there's only one once again. That's the Contenders autograph capsule, holding the 3 most expensive holos, and the challengers and the legends really can't compete as well. Now, obviously there are some other factors, and I will say don't just exclude these from your investment, but I would definitely weigh your investments precisely, and I think the team logos and the Contenders autograph are areas you should definitely at least put some consideration into. Now, talking about stickers, I saw a very interesting trend form. I'm not going to tell you just yet. I want you to try and figure it out. Looking at these 7 stickers right here, these are the same ones I analyzed in my previous video, and they showed up today massively with a 108% return over the past 6 months. That's a very strong return. However, there's 2 outliers in this data set. G2 and Navi, both of these really underperformed the rest of them. Take those out and now we're looking at 143% return, significantly more than what we just previously had. And I want to take that a step further. Look at this 6-team lineup right here. NIP, ENTS, Bad News Eagles, Team Liquid, Complexity, and FaZe. Only a 35% return over the past 6 months, which is significantly underperforming nearly everything we looked at today because of one specific thing, and that's the fact that they have other borderless alternatives. Go back to the previous data. 9Z, Cloud9, Eternal Fire, and Imperial all do not have other borderless options. Spirit does. It's a little bit of an outlier, and I only included it because it was in that original data set, but the 4 that didn't performed significantly better than the other ones that do. Now, the most interesting part about this is the fact that if we want to take the Paris holos from the moment the sale hit when they bottomed out and bring them all the way up towards today, we can see the exact same trend forming. Look at this list right here. Furia, Mouse, 9, Fnatic, Vitality, Fluxo, Apex, Heroic, and Gamer Legion. The majority of these don't have borderless alternatives, and that leaves them to about an 80% return since the beginning of that sale. Look at this list right here. These are the same 6 teams we talked about for Antwerp, and you can see that the exact same thing is happening. They've only got an 18% return on average, and coming over to this image right here, we can see that 50% of the teams that participated in Paris do have a borderless alternative. 3 of them got a brand new logo, and 9 do not have a borderless alternative. This is not 100% guaranteed to grow, but the truth is a lot of these trends do come up again and again inside of CSGO investing. It's not a guarantee by any means, but I will say if I was going to invest into any specific sticker, I would probably look for something that's on this list that does either have a new logo or not have any borderless alternatives, because looking at the data we looked at today, this seems to be the most significant commonly occurring trend that we've seen among holo stickers. But that's all I got. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.